Spread out through the boat and get dressed in pairs. Help each other.
Submarine immersion equipment was intended to provide protection from cold waters in case evacuation was necessary. With dyes staining the water overhead, it was hoped that rescue could be quickly accomplished.
And then, for good measure, a second submarine of the same class goes down from the same yard. The wife of a Rear Admiral of Submarines, Mrs. B.C. Watson, launches HMS Truant. And these two today bring the total of submarines launched from Barrow up to 178. 178 ships for Imperial defense.
By the time World War II broke out, the Germans were the undisputed masters of the U-boat. Despite being smaller than their British and American counterparts, German submarines had huge successes, with the Type 7 alone sinking more ships than all the Allied subs put together during its forays into the Atlantic.
Nazi submarines, now berthed on the conquered coast, set out to starve the British people into submission.
And why did they pick Norway? Its many steep inlets or fjords would make excellent U-boat bases, from which raiders could prey on British supply lines.
The Type 11 prowled from Germany to the Far East, striking terror in the hearts of Allied seafarers. German submariners had a reputation for clean fighting and often went out of their way to rescue enemy combatants following a sinking. After the war, several U-boat commanders went on to have exemplary careers, serving in NATO as part of the West German Navy.
This is a two-man submarine captured in the attack on the American fleet in Pearl Harbor.
The concept of a mini-sub started with Italian development of a human torpedo in the 1930s, an explosive maneuvered by frogmen. Soon, the British, the Germans and the Japanese developed their own miniature submarines, including the Kohyoteki, a single-hull electric-powered craft that could reach a top speed of 19 knots underwater. Equipped with two 17.7-inch torpedoes, 50 Kohyoteki were commissioned and took part in raids on Pearl Harbor, Australia and Madagascar, as well as seeing action in the Pacific. The Otsugata Type B followed, the first of its kind powered by a diesel engine. The Germans developed the Neger, a submersible built around a G7E torpedo, equipped with a plexiglass cockpit. But the mini-sub was a death trap for its operator. Of the 200 delivered to the Navy, 120 were lost at sea. The Biber mini-sub was inspired by the capture of a British Wellman 46. Just 9 meters by 1.6 meters, the craft was powered by a single-shaft, 132 horsepower Opel Blitz Auto petrol engine. One 13-horsepower electric motor gave it underwater propulsion. When the petrol engine was run for extended periods of time, it gave off carbon monoxide fumes, which had the potential to suffocate the operator if the upper hatch was closed. The sub could submerge to 100 feet, but was uncontrollable in a dive. The two G7E torpedoes were fired via a pneumatic cylinder. When the remains of British mini-subs X7 and X8 were recovered from Norwegian waters, Germany adapted the design to create the Hecht to be used in mine-laying operations. Because the craft was intended only for underwater operations, it was powered by an 8 MAL-210 battery based on 5 17T torpedo troughs, driving a 12-horsepower AEG torpedo engine. The Hecht also carried a short-range torpedo with negative buoyancy. The Seehund was the best designed German mini-sub, but it didn't go into production until 1944, the waning months of the war. The two-man craft carried 2 torpedoes and was capable of extended operations. Their compact size of 11.9 meters in length, slow, steady speed, and almost noiseless operation made it almost impossible for Allied sonar or hydrophones to pinpoint the miniature sub. British Admiral Charles Little said of the Seehund, "Fortunately for us, these damn things arrived too late in the war to do any damage." Germany's U-boat success was largely due to the pioneering Wolfpack tactic, where up to 20 subs would converge on a single convoy. Masterminded by Karl Dönitz, the tactic saw the destruction of hundreds of ships from convoys such as SC-7. This convoy was attacked several times, including on the 18th of October 1940. On this night, Dönitz sent 5 U-boats into the convoy, where under the cover of darkness they ran surfaced between the Allied ships, taking down 16. The German submarine war was effective and terrifying. "The only thing that ever really frightened me during the war was the U-boat peril," admitted British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. But Wolfpacks became less effective once Britain employed its high-frequency direction finder to pick up the radio messages that the German subs relied on to set up the attacks.
The first U-boat to be captured by aircraft in this war. You will recall the story of how the Hudson attacked the submarine and forced it to surface, and then kept guard until the Navy arrived. There seems to be a bit of an ancient mariner yarn going on by one of the reception committee. Shut up.
However, the United States adopted the tactic for its war in the Pacific and successfully decimated the Japanese fleet.
More than 2,000 times during World War II, torpedoes found their targets in enemy vessels as the submarine fleet of the United States Navy established a mark unequaled in the history of naval warfare.
Up periscope. Bearing, mark 329. Range, mark 6100. Down periscope. Angle on the bow, starboard 15.
America's Pacific campaign was a deadly one for its submariners, as it lost 52 subs and 3,500 men in the fight against Japan. In all, 785 subs were sunk during the Second World War, with 8 out of 10 submariners losing their lives. After the war, the US, Britain and the USSR all came into possession of experimental German U-boats with snorkels and advanced sonar.
All ahead 1/3. All ahead 1/3. Torpedo run 1100. Brakes about 1600. Gyro 005 increasing. Shoot anytime.
Palau-class sub the USS Cochino was fitted with passive sonar, enabling her to listen underwater in silence without emitting the audible pings sent out by earlier model subs. Cochino was the last American submarine commissioned during the war. She was converted to greater underwater propulsion power, or guppy, and given a snorkel pipe that would take in fresh air, run the engines, and expel engine exhaust without surfacing. These modifications made her perfect for a secret Cold War assignment. In 1949, Cochino was sent to spy on the Soviet Northern Fleet inside the Arctic Circle near Murmansk. Holes were drilled in her pressure hull for cable to connect sensitive eavesdropping equipment. Ears were fitted beside the sub's sail, prepared to capture radio signals that indicated Soviet missile tests. But the voyage ended in disaster. No signals were confirmed, and the sub ran into bad weather off the coast of Norway, contributing to an electrical fire and battery explosion. The crew was forced to evacuate to sister sub, the USS Tusk, and the Cochino sank to the bottom of the sea. 7 people were drowned during the rescue. The post-war nuclear age transformed submarine technology. Not only were submarines designed to carry and fire nuclear weapons, nuclear power was used to propel them huge distances at high speed. The first nuclear-powered submarine was the USS Nautilus.